Hi, myself Parth Kapoor. I'm a fourth year computer engineering student at Thapa University, Patiala. I've been interning as a software engineering intern for the last 7 months here at Belzabar Software Services under the mentorship of Mr. Rupen Vijan and my faculty mentor, Dr. Surbhi Sharma. So what is Belzabar? Belzabar is basically a software firm that builds and maintains web solution for its clients. They have a proprietary workflow designer, but not a conventional code base here, where the backend logic is basically a set of units of chains and SQL steps, and the front end is basically a set of derived variables and components. The main project that I worked on here is the North Carolina's notice and storage management system for the Department of Motor Vehicle. Here we have over 10 million plus records, and I worked on the backend area where we were supposed to optimize and solve new tickets for the client. During my time here at Belzabar, initially I worked on the onboarding tickets and a little bit on a yield project. The tickets were supposed to make me understand how these proprietary systems work and how I work with them. After that, in the NSM project I have solved about 152 tickets that includes of bugs, change requests, and schema changes directly in the database. In parallel to that, recently I've been working on a tool chain of my own so that could help the daily workflows of general engineers here at Belzabar that I'll explain more further. Before understanding how and what I worked on, it needs to be made clear how a change goes to production. Basically, we work on the Postgres database here, and the automation designers and the page designers live as a Java Apache Tomcat application server, which are then containerized with Docker and orchestrated with a Kubernetes layer. We have 5 different servers here at NSM. The development server, where we build and integrate our changes. Quality assurance server, where the change gets validated by QA team. UAT server, user acceptance testing, where the client, the manager, and the business analyst checks what the change is and is the change according to the business requirement of the ticket. And before moving into production, we first move it to a staging environment, which has similar compute and storage layer according to production, so that we could check if our changes doesn't mess up at scale. Now, inside the 152 tickets that I worked on here at Belzabar, majority of them are bugs and reports that got listed by the quality assurance team, and these were basically general tickets that every day we had to work on. Then the support work that were also small changes and got initiated by the client itself. Then in the yield cell project, I worked on around 20 tickets. They're very small front-end heavy tickets to understand how these proprietary systems work. And in the end, the NSM change request. Now these were big ticket items. It generally take around 15 days to 2 months to finish each of these tickets. The most important ticket that I worked on, the change request one, the audit report. This was basically the ticket where the client needed an auditing system so that at every change that is being done at the portal, they could understand what the change was and they can look into it. So for this, we created reusable APIs for every creation, modification, and deletion operation, and a view changes API to understand what exactly was modified. For example, the owner name was modified from John Doe to John A. Doe. And we then integrated these APIs in all the business logic APIs we have here at Belzabar, and there were nearly around 160 APIs, the 160 business logic APIs. Then the LT260 expanding ticket. Now this ticket had a lot of business requirement changes, but those changes had very technical depth as well. The first important change was that to allow a single form to be filled in 2 different ways. This was more of a front-end only change. Then the most important ones, auto issuance of a form. Basically, when a form is being submitted, we need to trigger an auto issuance process. This auto issuance process needed to be a background process and basically be done as an asynchronous way, so that because the entire process is very lengthy, we don't want the user to wait for that. But because the entire process is very lengthy and it needed to be done in background, there's a very high risk that if any error occurred, that we might not able to get to know about it, and it would just be a silent error. So we designed the entire system such that it would be idempotent. Basically, if at any point anything fails, we create an alert and send an email to the monitoring people, and then we created a fallback so that at every different step that it could have failed, we start the process again from that step to complete the process automatically. Then the asynchronous bill printing. This was again a background job process where all the letters for a set of date needed to be merged into a single PDF and sent to the person who initiated it on their email. Because this was a more heavier process to get all the PDFs and merge them, this also needed attention of error handling. Now, I want to explain what external tool chain that I created. Basically, how we work here at Belzabar is that we have different APIs, and every different API has an associated UUID. In the network tab, the API calls doesn't simply give the name of the API that is being called. It just simply shows the UUID, and you don't know what this ID means, what this API is. So you need to, while debugging, you need to open this exact UUID. You need to copy paste it into the automation designer and open it in draft mode to fix it or to test it out. This took a lot of time because automation designer itself took a lot of time to open. Then you need to copy paste it just to know which exact API is this. And then after it's been open in the draft mode, you needed to copy paste the each and every item that was in the request payload for this API into the input boxes of automation designer. And this took a lot of time because, for example, if we had 10 inputs, then you need to copy paste 10 inputs in automation designer. So nearly 2 minutes for every single debug. What I created was an extension that worked as parallel with the network tab. This extension simply showed the name of the APIs that were being called in the published pages, and you can simply see, okay, that this is the API that failed, that it's the name of the API, and you can open the API directly into the automation designer's draft mode. After that, being open in the draft mode, it copies the payload, the request payload that it was being tested on, and copy paste the entire inputs on that automation designer's page. So it saves a lot of time. From 2 minutes, it just simply took 2 to 4 seconds, and it does it automatically. You don't just simply need to press a single button. I showed it to my team lead, and they got very impressed, and now it's being used in the early stages by a few other developers here at Belzabar. Nearly 10 developers are using this. I also created a command line tool, a basically abstraction of all the APIs we have here at Belzabar, so that an AI coding assistant like Claude Code could use them for debugging and finding the exact issues. And a cloud setup as well, so that we could easily use cloud agents to determine what the issue is. Now, hard constraint that I found out here while working at Belzabar is that we don't have a version control system here. Basically, if we are working on 2 tickets that require changes on the same API at the same time, and we need to move one change to the next environment, we cannot do that. If both the changes exist in the single API, both the changes will go to the next environment when migrating. Now, this was a big issue, and because of this, before every production release, we check if there are any unwanted changes to the just previous environment, that's the staging environment, and if there are any such changes, any such collisions, we need to manually revert those changes, and it generally takes a lot of time because, for example, if there are 10 tickets that we are sending and each ticket has around 5 APIs that we worked on, so there are 50 APIs that we need to check that there are no unwanted changes here, and if there are, we needed to revert them. What I learned here at Belzabar, working safely in a live system, the database is containing nearly 10 million plus records. Because of this, we need to very carefully design our API so that it doesn't take much time for loading, because at the development server there are no so much records, nearly 10,000 records, so it is easier to test them in the development server, but to understand how the scalability works is the key here. Then I also now understand how I can build and design a tool for other engineers who can depend upon it. Thank you. This was my internship experience. I hope this gives you a little idea of how my time here at Belzabar was spent. Thank you.